The Realist, Right and the Federal Slave State. Read by an artificial intelligence based on the voice of Sam Fisher. By KULAK, from her Substack, Anarchonomicon. The supposedly realist right will pretend to have these hard Schmittian ideas of the true nature of power. That they're the ones who have seen through the illusions. They're the ones giving the Voldemort speeches only power and those too weak to seek it. Then when you ask what power means, it's invariably voting harder, just not for libertarianism. I swear they live in an alternate universe where some bizarro Ron Paul was elected instead of what actually happened. Trump was elected and then implemented lockdowns. They say the losses of the past were the result of a right in the throes of an ideology of libertarianism or abstract principle, as if the right had ever won and been positioned to implement any ideology at all. They argue we need a right-wing socialism, an economically populist program. That economic liberalism has failed. As if at some imagined point in the past, Americans had succeeded in ending welfare to single black mothers, or getting rid of anti-discrimination law and the attendant HR industrial complex, or ending the wars and charging Raytheon executives with corruption and war crimes. This has all been tried and failed, they insist, as if there was an imaginary Ron Paul administration sometime in 2010. As if Ronald Reagan believed in anything except letting the boomers pretend America wasn't already mortally wounded by FDR, the New Deal, anti-discrimination, and the abandonment of every social institution that let it become the wealthiest nation on earth to begin with. And because it failed now, we need a right-wing ideology that really understands power, one that understands the only thing that matters in politics is the friend-enemy distinction. One unafraid to crush their foes. And how do they intend to achieve this? By voting harder in an electoral system they themselves claim is rigged, implementing Bannonist right-wing socialist policies they themselves say will be executed by bureaucrats who hate them, all without offering any violence or threat to an elite they themselves admit is committed to a slow genocide of the American people via artificially raised cost of living, birth suppression, and ethnic replacement. Somehow they have oriented power at the center of their ideological commitments, yet have no definition of political power or conception of what that means. When any actual Ron Paul libertarian could have told them the axiomatic truth, political power is violence and violence is political power. In every instance, without exception. When your grandmother organizes a bake sale for a political cause, she exercises political power only to the extent that bake sale results in awareness and funds, which result in organizing, which result in or increase the likelihood of either state or non-state violence. If she's raising money to pass a new tax law or raising money for the IRA, she only exercises political power if at the end of the long chain of causality a sovereign actor, be it the government or a non-governmental actor, threatens a human being with violence and danger over it. This is why the left wins. Because whether it's rioting or threatening mom and shop businesses with lawsuits and the violent confiscation of their businesses lest they bake the gay wedding cake, they are unafraid to enforce their vision with violence. And realist, supposedly Schmittian right-wingers move us away from that. Every dime ever paid to a leftist government employee is paid out of tax dollars, i.e., an actual American who worked hard all year doing real work had a gun held to their head and was threatened with the loss of everything. His business, home, family, freedom, and his life if he resisted, if he did not pay a double-digit percentage of his income, representing the cumulative hundreds and thousands of hours of what is now slave labor, to people who hate him and will accept that money in payment to murder his country. This is the real power politics of American life. This what the actual friend-enemy distinction of American politics is. The honest, real Americans who are actually oppressed and enslaved by the federal government under threat of death versus the government employees and NGOs making six-figure salaries to enable that extractive oppression. The daily grind of state-backed horrors and violence against the most honest and productive people who have ever lived, in the name of the welfare of those who steal from them and are neither honest nor productive. And these right-wing socialists And traditional conservatives would have such a bureaucracy maintained if not expanded. Why? Because libertarianism has been tried and failed. We must use the state against our enemies. Which enemies? What enemies do the Amerikaners have if not the federal government, the federal bureaucracy, federal anti-discrimination law, federally funded universities, federally funded to refugee to NGOs, federally mandated school curriculums, federal employment law, the Federal National Firearms Act, and federal hate crime and anti-lynching laws, which have been systematically implemented to criminalize self-defense. And of course, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the secret police force employed against American dissidents. The singe polity in America that votes Democrat at a higher rate than any other in America is Washington, D.C., 92.5% Democrat, 5.4% Republican. The American left is the faction of the federal government. And they are well compensated for it. Of the 20 wealthiest counties in America, 8 are the suburbs that immediately ring D.C. Your enemies enriched of your dollars whilst they plot your demise. And the only way to permanently defeat them and permanently crush the federal bureaucracy which has enslaved America is to permanently destroy the federal government. You cannot vote harder for that. You cannot use the government against that enemy. You cannot adopt the friend-enemy axiom and call it quits. You need to accept, internalize, and lead your life according to the fundamental, undeniable political axiom. All political power is violence, and all violence is political power. This is what Ron Paul tried to explain to you people gently. And having seen the result of that attempt, I'm not being gentle. You are a slave. You accept the violence of a system meant to extract labor and resources from you for the benefit of others. Indeed, everyone except you. You are an obedient slave because you offer no violence in turn. And you are a contemptible slave because you honestly, fundamentally believe in the legitimacy of the system that enslaves you. Something not even the leftists who run that system and benefit from it truly believe.